Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this special meeting of the Environment, Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee this morning, the 6th of March 2023. I'll introduce the top table first. On my left, we have Mark Butterworth, the Vice Convener, Councillor Mike Williamson, Barbara Renton, myself, and Adam Taylor from Committee Services. Adam, can you confirm any apologies or substitutions? Thank you. And take the roll call.
Thanks, Convener. We've had apologies submitted this morning from Councillor Duff, who has been substituted by Councillor Reid, and also from Councillor Kigali, substituted by Councillor Anderson. I'll just quickly run through the members who are joining us here in the chambers and then ask those online to confirm whether they're actually in the meeting. So in the chambers with us this morning, we have Councillor Allen, Councillor Carr, Councillor Forbes, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Anderson, Bailey McLaren, yourself, Convener, Councillor Stewart, and Vice Convener Williamson. Can I just ask Bailey to confirm whether he's online?
Yes, present. Yes, present.
Thank you. And Councillor Reid?
Present. Present.
Councillor Robertson?
Present.
Councillor Smith?
Good morning, everyone. Present.
Councillor Waters?
Present, Adam.
And Councillor Welsh?
Yep, present. Thank you.
Thank you. That's everybody, Convener.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if there are any declarations of interest in respect to the business on the agenda today? Nope. Okay. We'll proceed then, and I will ask Mark Butterworth to introduce the report.
Thank you, Convener. I'll be brief. Later this year, the World Cycling Championships will be held in Scotland. This will be the first time that all 13 disciplines. This will be the first time that all 13 cycling disciplines will be held at the same time. As part of the event, Perth and Kinross has been asked to host the Gran Fondo. The Gran Fondo, if approved today, will be held on Friday, the 4th of August, and will see thousands of competitors and spectators come to Perth and Kinross. And the purpose of the report today in front of you is to seek committee's approval to the proposed route and, in effect, to host the event itself. Thank you, Convener.
And I would now ask if Trudy Lindblade would come forward to present to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to talk to you about the 2023 UCI Cycling World Championships, but in particular, the Gran Fondo element of that event, which we wish to host here in Perth and Kinross, as you heard, on Friday, the 4th of August. I'd like to introduce you to my team who will be presenting here today. We've got a range of expertise on the team. So we've got Jenny Steele on the right here, who is our head of comms and PR, and will be a really important element. We have a dedicated comms and PR team working on the resident and business comms, so that falls as part of Jenny's team, and that's a really important element of this for us and also for you. Our Director of Sport, Phil Hesselwood. Phil has extensive experience in running not just major events but also cycling events, and has worked for British Cycling for a number of years, so is well versed in the delivery of Gran Fondo and elite cycling events on the road and on the track and in other venues. And then we have Rona Korskaden, who is our head of stakeholder relationships, and Rona is heading up the team here to work with you to deliver the Gran Fondo. Rona comes to us from Visit Scotland and has, again, extensive experience working within Scotland and within the local communities to deliver major events, and has a great understanding of all of those elements that towns and communities need to consider when a major event does come to town. We also have Malcolm Smith, who is hopefully joining us online. We've had some troubles with the connection this morning, so we are just working through it at the moment. But Malcolm is from Golazo, which is the company tasked with delivering this event on our behalf as our event delivery partner. Malcolm and his team run Gran Fondo and mass participation cycling events year in and year out. They are part of a bigger organisation, Golazo International, which delivers some of the biggest Gran Fondo events throughout Europe. So we do know that we have the best and brightest here to help you and us deliver an event that will have an incredible outcome for everyone. So what I wanted to do is go to the first slide and sorry, Audrey, who's juggling things at the moment, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about this event. We might go straight into the video if that's okay.
One has to start somewhere. Even world champions. The biggest cycling event in the world ever is coming to Glasgow and across Scotland. But it's about much more than just bikes. It's about 13 incredible UCI World Championships over 11 breathtaking days. It's about the journey that it takes to get there. And it's about everyone coming together. It's screaming at the top of our lungs. It's the great outdoors and the great indoors. It's raising hopes, raising the stakes, and raising the next generation of UCI World Champions. It's where heroes will rise, legends may fall, records are broken, and dreams come true. It's friends, fun, passion, and the power of the bike. And it's winning that jersey. It's the 2023 UCI Cycling World Championships. Now is your chance. Now is our moment. Now we ride.
Amazon, home to unmissable.
That bit is not part of our presentation. So I hope that video gives you just a little bit of an insight to this event, because it is not just about the elite athletes, it's also about the power of the bike. And you'll hear us talk about the power of the bike, because the funding that we've received for this event through our stakeholders, through Scottish Government, through Glasgow City Council, through Glasgow City Council, through UK Sport, and through all our local authorities, it is not just going towards delivering the elite elements of this event. It is also about the power of the bike and those long-lasting legacies that we hope that this event will bring. So I know some of you will have seen this slide before in the ward councillor meetings, but this is just a really good way to summarise this event. It has never been done before, so we all in this room get the chance to hopefully do something new, do something for the very first time. How often do you get to be part of something big and special, but do it for the very first time? So 13 World Championships in one to create one mega event across Scotland. Major events traditionally in Scotland have generally been held in main city areas, particularly as it relates to sport. But in this case, it is really important to us that we are taking this event all around Scotland, and I'll have a slide shortly that will show you how we're doing that. There'll be 10 host venues and there'll be a world champion crowned every day. And in the case of this World Championships, it will be multiple world champions, 200 jerseys. And one of the things that we particularly love about this event, and it's really important to us, is its equality, diversity and inclusion element. So you'll see paracycling and road cycling together for the very first time. The other element of inclusion is its amateur athletes and elite athletes, and that's where the Gran Fondo in Perth and Kinross will play such an important role, because there'll be thousands of amateur athletes trying to emulate their heroes here in Perth as part of this major event. We'll also have 4,000 volunteers, again, really important part of the community. We're wanting to build on that volunteering spirit so that we hopefully will leave with you a number of volunteers that will work with our event and then leave you with ready-made volunteers to use at future major events in this area. Across the course of the event, there will be over 8,000 elite and amateur athletes, with a lot of them, in fact, nearly half of them in this region for the Gran Fondo World Championships. Across the entire event, it's 120 plus countries, but we do know for the Gran Fondo it will be over 50 countries based on previous registrations at other Gran Fondo events. If we can move on to the next slide, please. I just wanted to touch on this slide. It's just for 10 seconds to say this is part of something. This is part of something big and something special. For the sustainable future of cycling, by bringing 13 World Championships together, it will help promote the sport and will help promote healthier lifestyles. So we're bringing together mountain bike, road, track, BMX, amateur and elite, para, able-bodied into one major event to showcase the sport of cycling but importantly, the power of the bike. So those community and local and health and wellbeing messages. Moving on to the next slide. So this is, I mentioned earlier about our about the depth and breadth of this event and being around Scotland. So this map gives you an indication of where we are taking this event. So from the north in Fort William down to the south in Dumfries and Galloway, and importantly across into Perth, Angus and Dundee for the Grand Fondo events. This will be an opportunity for Scotland to showcase its major event credentials, but also to showcase local communities and giving back into the communities. One of the elements that we're delivering with this event is we're not creating a really big local organising committee, so bringing lots of people in from outside, and I know my Scottish accent isn't brilliant, but we do have a local and ready-made network. So what we're doing is working with local UK-based companies to be able to deliver these events on our behalf. So bringing local experience, local knowledge, and then leaving local experience at the end. And that's the same with our volunteer network. That's the same with local authorities. So what can we do as bringing a major event to your region to help leave skills and experience? So you can see that map explains where we'll be hosting the events and all around Scotland. Moving on to the next slide. So who we are. It's really important to understand that this event is supported by a broad range of stakeholders. We're very much a local event, and that's very important to us, and I imagine is also very important to you. One of the things that we are delivering with this event is making sure that we don't do it at the, or striking the balance, I should say, of delivering a major event but keeping it authentic. If you can imagine the sport of cycling, it is a range of different audiences and a range of different disciplines. So what we're wanting to say is it's a local event with global ambition, keeping that authenticity in each of the local events to make sure we bring through the local communities, but also on the global stage, because that's also really important, because how often do you get to showcase your community to a global audience? So we need to strike that balance. We need to work with you to make sure that local community is brought through and we leave those important elements with you, but also that we give you the global stage as well. So finding that balance, and we will work with you to do that. We have a group of visionary stakeholders, so we can't do this without funding and support from government stakeholders and local authorities like yourselves. So the Union Cyclists International, they are the owner of this event, and they have passed their rights on to the Scottish Government, who in turn have passed their rights on to the organisation that I head up, 2023 Cycling World Championships Limited. Importantly though, we are a subsidiary company of Visit Scotland. So we work with Visit Scotland. I'm employed, my team and I, we're employed as a subsidiary company of Visit Scotland, and we get to rely on the skills and expertise of Visit Scotland, again, leaving that within the local community when this event concludes, and we can carry on the ambitions that we've set out. Bridget, you can see the stakeholders on the screen. I won't go through them all, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you that we are part of an existing organisation, an important organisation in Scotland's tourism and major events industry. And if we move along to the next slide, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about our purpose and ambition, because the team will talk to you about the detail around how we will deliver this Grand Fondo with you to make sure that Perth and Kinross residents and community, but also the athletes participating, will have the best possible time. So we talk about the power of the bike. In getting and securing this event, part of our ambition is to talk about long-lasting change. So the bike, it's a really simple machine, but it is actually much more than that. It can win gold medals and world champions for elite athletes, but it can also get you to work every morning. I ride my bike to work every morning. It's just a short distance, but I ride my bike every morning, and I use that for my mental health. It's that 15, 20 minutes every day to and from work that I can do that. And that's my personal story about what the power of the bike means for me. But working with local authorities and the government, we want to make sure that this event provides that long-lasting legacy, whether it is through health and wellbeing, through transport, changing the way people move around their cities, because by choosing a bike instead of a car for a short journey, we know that that can make a change to our contribution towards net zero. So it's about getting those messages out into the community and using this event as a platform to do that. You can read on the slide there all our different elements for our ambitions, and I don't want to go into that in a great deal of detail, but it's important that you understand what we're trying to achieve, and it's more than just delivering a terrific event for you on the 4th of August, but from the 3rd to the 13th of August, it's about what are those other elements that this event can bring. Before I hand over to the team, I just wanted to share with you that I have worked in cycling events for probably over half my career, and I've delivered a range of cycling on-road events, and I understand the challenges that communities face. Growing up in a small country town in Australia, I understand what the community means, and I also understand what it means to have a major event coming into your community. And it's not easy when you bring the big show into town, but you also have big shows here too. You have the Perth show, you have your Christmas lights on, which are ways that you can consider what are those impacts and what are those lessons we can learn from those that we can bring to this event. Having worked in my team, having worked with communities such as yourselves, we've got a great deal of experience to find solutions and find ways to make sure that we can deliver an incredible event for yourselves. But I know it won't be easy, and I want to rest assured that we don't take that on face value, but we'll work with you to deliver something incredible for Perth and Kinross. I'm going to hand over to the team now, and we'll go into a bit more detail because I know that's exactly what you're after, and then we look forward to answering any questions that you have at the end of our presentation. So thank you very much for the opportunity and the time, and I'll hand over to the team now. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Judy. Good morning, everybody. So just a little bit focusing now on the actual championships we're looking to bring to Perth and Kinross, UCI Gran Fondo World Championships. It's a global event as part of a global first we want to bring here to create the local impact and benefits we think it will bring. I've spoken to most of you about this, so I'll do this fairly top line. There is 27 World qualifiers this year, all building towards Perth and Kinross. There's already been 6 of those in Australia, Indonesia, Italy, Turkey, Jordan, and the UAE. And they will bring over 50 nations to Perth and Kinross to see this wonderful area. We anticipate in the region of 8,000 visitors for the Gran Fondo, and that's based on previous data from previous UCI Gran Fondo World Championships, of which 2,500 to 3,500 will be the participants themselves, which I've previously explained how that happens through the qualification system, and the sportive, which follows the race, for another 2,000. Each of those brings, give or take, about one person through, which gives you an estimate of about 8,000. Next slide, please, Audrey. And I think part of this was asked a couple of times in the ward meetings we had, and I just wanted to highlight it a little bit more as to why Perth and Kinross. And the main reason, it's just a spectacular place to ride your bike. We really, when we were looking for places to host various events, the problem with Gran Fondo is the need to show the participants an absolutely fantastic place to be. And Perth and Kinross does that, but it also has to, we want to show the world Scotland. Perth and Kinross does that in an envelope. And we've had the UCI run the routes and they think they are absolutely beautiful. It is a world-class route. We need to present that as well. That's another consideration we had to look at in terms of making sure that the routes themselves were of a challenging nature enough for the riders that want to ride these. One of the other things you really need with the Gran Fondo World Championships is a major conurbation start, but rural routes. And again, Perth and Kinross has the beauty of being able to do that. We also need to work with a local authority that's experienced in event delivery, and Mark and the team are very experienced across event delivery, and you also need to have the accommodation and transport links so it's accessible for international visitors, of which this is a significant part of these participants are. So I'll just pass across to Jenny now, who will talk a bit more about the economic impact.
Thanks, Phil. So obviously with any event, the footfall and the economic impact in area is a really, really important consideration. So looking at previous events from around France and Italy, and then putting that through the established Visit Scotland and Event Scotland sports calculator, we've estimated that this event could attract in excess of 2.7 million.
Sorry, I think, can you get closer to your mic? It's, yeah, thanks.
Okay. It could attract in excess of 2.7 million for the area. So that's not an inconsiderate amount of money that could be coming into this region, especially on the back of COVID and the past few visitor seasons that have been experienced. We're looking at this would be a real boost to the local economy. We know that Phil had mentioned that the cyclists travel with family and friends. We know that the audience that take part in these types of events are fairly affluent. They will travel to lots of different destinations to take part. They are really serious about their hobbies, so they will travel to wherever these events take place. So these people will spend when they're in the local area, and they will stay, they will experience the region. So if they're travelling from further afield, it's very likely that they will stay a few nights. They will visit local attractions, use local accommodation, services, provisions, and that all adds to that local impact that will help to local trade and visitor facilities as well. Next slide. So we talked about some of the countries that the visitors will come from to take part in this event. This is really going to make sure that the Perth and Kinross will be recognised with other regions and selected parts of Scotland. So it's going to be real kudos that the testament of UCI of bringing this event to Scotland really relies on the areas that they've selected, and that they're going to really showcase Scotland at its best. And it's fantastic that Perth and Kinross has been selected as one of these. Throughout the UCI and our own marketing campaigns, which will include TV, radio, media, social, website advertising, that's a significant marketing spend that we'll be taking over the next few months until the championships. So the area will form part of that and will be represented within that content, reaching thousands of people. The route will be a cycling route for perpetuity. So cyclists will come to take part in this route for years and years to come. And we know this from events such as Yorkshire, that they will come and do this route. So it's not going to be that when the championships are over, everybody goes and the route is forgotten. The route actually will remain a championship route. So it will attract cycling enthusiasts and cycling tourism for years to come. As part of the cycling tourism, Visit Scotland has created a campaign called Scotland Made for Cycling, and that's something that we're really, really strong on promoting, because we recognise that this could be a catalyst for cycling tourism and investment in locations and development opportunities for the future and for the region. So it's not just about focusing on this event itself, it's about what will come in the future. The global coverage is going to be fantastic for this event. So Phil had mentioned the amount of the fact that the UCI consider this area to be really beautiful. That is something that will come across really strongly when all these broadcasters and media are going to be in the area. So there's the European Broadcast Union and also BBC. BBC Sport have the rights to show this, and also BBC Scotland as a partner. There's going to be thousands of media coming to Scotland to showcase this event, so whether that's across lifestyle, travel, TV coverage. So having Scotland look at its absolute best and being shown the scenic routes that the site riders are doing is going to be a fantastic promotion for the area. Working with Visit Scotland, we know that 1 in 5 people are inspired to go to a destination because they've seen it on film or television. So there's a great audience out there, so those who can't come to visit can actually come, seeing it on TV, may also be inspired to visit later. And while it's a really global event and we're going to be attracting lots and lots of people to come and visit this area, it's also about engaging our communities and towns and villages. And we want to make sure that everybody here gets a chance to be part of that. We'll talk a little bit about later about how people can get involved and engaged, but it's certainly about making sure that people are aware of what's happening. There's a really good opportunity to be part of it, and everybody feels part of that first ever event, and also really can help create that festival atmosphere. So when you have 8,000 people in the area, we want to make sure that it is really, really an event that will be memorable for participants and also for people who live here. Thank you. Next slide, Audrey.
Okay. Okay, so unfortunately our colleague Malcolm Smith has been unable to access the meeting, so I'm afraid you got my tones for a while. He's on the phone. Okay, can I throw to Malcolm then? Brilliant. Okay, I'll start while we try and get Malcolm on, and then we'll continue. So we've been consulting across everybody, as you're aware, and we have been trying to look at what the best time to start everything is. As everybody's aware, there is two elements to the Gran Fondo: the Gran Fondo race and the Sportive. So the race groups will start at 10 o'clock, and the last race groups will start at 11:15. Then there'll be a short break until the Sfondo starts, and then there will be various groups set off until 2:15. The reason for the slightly longer time there is that we need the first Sportive riders doing the short route not to clash with the first racers doing the longer route. So there is some breaks within there. Riders are encouraged to come 2 hours before their start time into the town centre, and often use the local facilities while they're here, which we'll hope will bring a boost on that Friday morning. Next slide. Is he on mute now? I'll pass across to Malcolm. Okay, so I'll continue. The proposed start and finish is we will be using the North Inch to host the riders and the race village, and then they will progress out onto Tay Street and Rose Street and Charlotte Street to start their races and rides. One of the things we've looked at here is to try and reduce the amount of disruption on Tay Street as much as we can. So that's why we're going to use a bit of Charlotte Street. Next slide, please. The proposed event venue, so there is what the UCI call like a host venue, which sounds a bit weird for this, but it's where all the briefings happen and all the riders come to register. That is proposed as the Perth Concert Hall. Malcolm is in contact with the Perth Concert Hall and has already met with them. There will be 3 briefings happen for up to 1,200 riders in each briefing through the days just before the event, and that's when some small activations will start taking place in the plaza outside the concert hall. We're also looking at proposing parking on the North Inch. There will be, give or take, 2,500 riders that bring their cars, we think, but obviously we will be trying to encourage people to travel to the start by bike themselves. Most will try, or other ways rather than using the car. And we are working with the Perth Show to coordinate the parking requirements to ensure that both can work, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Thank you, Audrey. So in terms of the disruption that we're likely to cause for the setup and pack down, obviously there is some infrastructure. As you've seen on some of the previous pictures, there is a nice big gantry that goes up to show everybody where they were on that day. And we're looking at closing Tay Street for a short time from 8 o'clock the night before through to the midnight of the end of the race. on the Friday, and that is to ensure that everything is installed so that the race and rides can happen. It will also be, Malcolm is still going through detailed planning on this, and as we get feedback, things are fluid, so we are trying to work through all the feedback we're getting and understanding. There might also be a need for some restrictions on Charlotte Street, just for barrier and drop off, obviously for just the safety of everybody, but those are still being worked through. So the road closures themselves, this is quite small on the screens in the chambers here, but potentially those who've got screens can see it a bit better. The road closures times are shown on the map. The closures here show the full extent of the closures and a kind of worst case scenario, if you like. As previously discussed, the race is different from the sportive, so the race has to progress down closed roads and cannot be stopped. Whereas once the race has gone through, there is then opportunities for us to work with local communities to be able to ensure more viable access through the time the sportive is running. So the closure times you see there are our sort of worst case scenario, and once the race has gone through, which is the first part of the proceedings, then there's more flexibility in being able to allow access and move people around. But those can all be worked through on a case-by-case basis, as Malcolm has started doing with a number of people. So in terms of the specific and general mitigations, I know Malcolm's been talking to various people around these for the Gran Fondo and the Medio route. As I've just said, we will be able to utilise the window between the Gran Fondo race and the sportive, because there has to be a gap to be able to facilitate traffic crossings and allow movement around. So, for example, where deliveries are needed to be made, we can programme them into those slots. And work with local businesses to ensure those single-day deliveries either work before the start or in the gaps. We're also able to utilise the window between the sportive and the Medio sportive to facilitate crossings. And then as we work through the various things, we are also able to use the moto team that are on the race. So the motos are motorbike riders that are able to escort people in the direction of the race to allow access for emergencies. So welfare emergencies or other particular needs where there is a time limited need to move around the course, the motos can escort people in the direction, which means that people are able to do what they need to do in an emergency basis. Next slide. So there will be traffic management. There is a need for robust traffic management. Malcolm and his team are very experienced in this, especially within Gran Fondo. I should have mentioned at the beginning that Malcolm and his team run one of the most successful Gran Fondo events down in Cambridge each year. It's the only Gran Fondo in this country and has been successful for a number of years now. So they will be using their experienced contractors and local contractors to work to ensure that the traffic management is done in a way which makes sure the riders are safe, but also make sure that the people, the local people, are able to do what they need to do as much as we can feasibly let it happen. I've already spoken about the local access points, but that also means making sure that the diversions are in place so that people are aware and moved around the race where needed, and they don't just hit bottlenecks, but also looking at managed access plans again with the moto team, and all of that is integrated by Malcolm's team. The Perth show, or just an excuse to show a really nice cow. We've been working, so and I know in a number of the ward meetings, the Perth show was raised, and we've reached out to the Perth show. Malcolm had, not myself, but Malcolm and team have actually had meetings with the Perth show to discuss the impacts. The Perth show are actually really positive about our event coming. We will work with them, as we've already mentioned, in terms of parking and diversions to make sure that the traders and the farmers wanting to access the show early on the Friday are able to do so, and that is part of the start time being slightly later to ensure that people can access the Perth show early in the morning. We as I said, we've already had positive communications with them. We are only on the Friday of the Perth show, but one of the key things we want to do is we will actively promote the Perth show alongside the Grand Fondo to the participants and the sportive participants as a kind of weekend of activity. So when we are asking them to come, we will tell them about the Perth show and encourage them to visit what for a number of international visitors will be quite a unique experience for them, and again something very Scottish that we're able to give them. So it's a really positive thing for us, and we hope for the Perth show as well. Next slide, please. So consultation. Everybody, I think, in the room is aware that we've done ward meetings with every ward, and I just want to say we are listening. One of the things we said in the ward meetings was we were looking at how the start time could have as little impact as possible, and we've tried to do that as best we can. Inevitably, there is no impact, but we are trying to make the impact as beneficial as it can be. We've looked at we've had significant conversations with the ward councillors in the Highlands, and Pitlochry was a significant issue. We have taken on a suggestion from one of the ward councillors there to change the route in Pitlochry, which helps a bit. I wouldn't say it solves the problems, but it helps a bit. Malcolm started collating community groups that could be identified that could both benefit from the event, but also might be affected from the event, and how we might start to mitigate those. We've connected with the Perth show, which is what I've already mentioned, and those local issues about the medical centre in Aberfoyle, or the dairy in I think it's Strathmore. So those issues are being collated and being worked on to ensure that we are able to engage with those businesses and understand how we can best work with those businesses to make it work for them as best we can. We are very aware that some businesses will do very well out of this, and we are aware that some businesses will be affected. And it's about what we're trying to do is ensure that those businesses that do very well, and those businesses that are affected as little as we can make them be. And I'll just pass to Jenny for the community consultation.
Thanks, Phil. So one of the things that's been mentioned across all the ward meetings, and also raised by a few of you, is about how we communicate this with businesses and residents, because this is all going to be key to make sure that they are aware of the event, that they know how to take part in the event, but also what impact it's going to have on them. So we will work together with Malcolm at Galazzo, the delivery partner, and also the council communications team to make sure that there's a whole range of ways that we can do that. So obviously thinking about the MSPs and MPs, making sure that people know about the value of the opportunity. Apologies, there seems to be an extra local in that second line there. Working with local authority and community councils, and actually the community groups and businesses themselves. So there's a whole range of tactics that we'll do to do that. So that includes letter drops and radio advertising, traffic diversion management, and then working with lots of different workshops, sessions, drop-in sessions, town hall meetings, where people can come along and find out how to get involved. There will be a toolkit for people that they can then use branding and be able to address their properties and make sure that they're actually promoting the event if they want to do pop-up events or create special events for their communities or visitors that are coming. So it's really to create that festival type of atmosphere, but also to make sure that the logistics and the practical day-to-day impact will be clearly made clearly aware to them. We'll also work with people like One Network, which is a sort of traffic network where roads companies can work together and communicate. So looking at making sure that when people are trying to get to Perthshire and actually when they're here, that people really are aware of what this event will bring and also how they can go about their daily lives around it. I'll pass over to Phil, who's going to wrap up now. Thank you.
So one of the things that was mentioned just the other day was how Perth and Kinross are looking at engaging with the event. So there's two groups formed in Perth and Kinross, a local group formed to look at the policy initiatives. So the policy initiatives, I guess to explain, are the impacts that Trudy spoke about. So the health, well-being impact, and how they best tie into what Perth and Kinross are trying to achieve strategically, and how best the event can be used to do that, and a local stakeholder group for Perth and Kinross. We as an organisation also have a curriculum plaque that's in development that will run off the back of this event, which can be utilised within schools and engage schools to continue the benefits of the event. There is over £8 million been leveraged by the delivery of this event for cycling places and cycling activations, of which Perth and Kinross is a significant beneficiary of. So that is already a benefit that Perth and Kinross is experiencing from the wider championships. And Scottish Cycling are also working with us to activate the championships, which is a longitudinal piece of work about engaging young people to get on their bikes and ride and compete on their bikes. So that's a very, very quick overview of sort of the start of many things that can happen, and that's and we've just got a finishing slide, but it's.
So in summary, convener, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today about our ambitions for the Gran Fondo, both for the local community, but also the wider ambitions of the event. We hope we've been able to assure council and committee members of the benefits and opportunities, and that we are listening, and that we do want to work with you to be able to deliver something here in Perth and Kinross that you're extremely proud of, that will be showcased on the global stage, but will retain that very much local community feel and showcase this beautiful area for cycling. So thank you, and we hand back to you.
Thank you, Raj. If you can switch off your. Thank you, Raj. Before we move to questions, in accordance with standing orders, Provost Sander McDade has asked to address the committee on an issue that affects his ward, and in accordance with standing orders, I would invite him to address the committee now. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for agreeing to hear me on this ward matter this morning. I think we have already heard from some of the organisers that the Highland Ward councillors did have quite a number of concerns about matters affecting our area in particular. The major roads through Aberfeldy and Pitlochry being blocked for most of the day, meaning there's no access from the north or to the north from Pitlochry's main road. There is also right the way through Aberfeldy the route that covers the doctor access to doctor surgery and other key access to services. So we're quite concerned about the route. Now there has been a minor change in Pitlochry which does improve very slightly by maintaining access to the train station and the supermarket, but it does continue to close off the main road, which means that the significant tourist traffic, coach traffic, bus traffic will be heavily disrupted and likely will mean that they will not come through the town due to the road closure that will be enforced. From my point of view, we have quite a lot of experience of closed road cycling event in Highland Perthshire. We have the ETAP Caledonia on an annual basis and have over the last number of years been working very hard to minimise disruption from that and have learned a lot about.
Sorry, Provost. There is a background noise coming from somewhere. Can we please try and eliminate that so that we can hear the Provost? Can we, if the phone doesn't need to be there, can we please get rid of it? Thank you. Okay, on you go. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have quite a lot of experience of ways to minimise the disruption, and we did offer some of these to the organisers, but it has been explained that some of those options, such as an earlier start time, aren't suitable for this particular event. So just for members who aren't aware, the ETAP starts at 5 AM and most of the disruption is clear in the morning and is basically reduces a lot of the impact, where this will be significant impact because it will be through most of the day on one of the busiest bank holiday weekends of the year. This is the only weekend of the year where all of the UK schools are off on holiday, most of Europe is off on holiday. Our businesses are already basically at peak demand, so they're not going to be benefiting from additional visitors in this. It's going to be displacement, actually likely due to the disruption of the road closures. People will not actually be able to get to these businesses, so they're actually going to lose out on quite a critical weekend of the year. So from my point of view, what I would like to encourage the committee this morning is if the committee is minded to proceed with the event, and I understand the council is very supportive of it, is to look at deferring the agreement of the route until such time as a route can be sought that causes much less disruption. From my point of view, ideally it doesn't go through Highland Perthshire, because diversions through Highland Perthshire, as you might imagine, a simple road closure in Highland Perthshire means a perhaps 40-mile detour, because you can't just go down another little side road, because there isn't another little side road, this is the side road. So if there are alternative options that could be sought where it would not cause quite as much disruption, I think that would be a much better alternative. But I know from last year when Network Rail wished to close the main road in Pitlochry, a much smaller section, there was incredibly huge outcry, which led to Network Rail having significant pressure applied to them by parliamentarians and others to not do it because of the disruption that businesses feared, and the coach companies indicated that they wouldn't come through the town. So we do have evidence from last year that this will be a problem, and therefore actually from our point of view the economic benefits are not an economic benefit. Likely it's just displacement or potentially a negative one in Highland, whilst I appreciate there might well be positive benefits elsewhere, and we're very supportive of that, but we would then encourage members to consider an alternative route that doesn't cause such disruption. Things like health services, the doctor's surgery not being accessible, these are really key things for our constituents. This is a working day, and this is not a Sunday like the ETAP is on. It is a working day. People do need to get to work, need to get to services, and need to be able to run their businesses. So I would encourage members to consider this. The council is putting funding into this, but I understand the Scottish Government has also put considerable amounts of money, millions of pounds, and that hasn't been mentioned to be part of the support. So I think it would be helpful if we could establish as well whether we're getting any of that money and whether that could be used to help support some of the problems that are likely to be faced through this. I'm happy to take questions from members of the committee as well.
Thank you, Provost. Do any members have questions just now for the Provost? Councillor Stewart.
Thanks to you, Provost, and thank you for your deputation, Provost McDade. You mentioned about the economic impact. I think you were talking spoke a moment ago about the proposed Network Rail closure and coaches refusing to go through. Do you know if the economic impact assessment that's been done has included any negative impacts of the event due to road closures affecting businesses?
I don't know the answer to that. I've only read the report which talks about putting it into the I think it's Visit Scotland calculator, which provides a number, but I imagine it probably doesn't include that. But I mean, that's a question that could be directed to officers or the organisers to provide an answer to. But I certainly know that, you know, in Highland Perthshire, we are basically at capacity that weekend. It will be impossible pretty much to get accommodation that weekend anyway. Most businesses will be working their busiest weekend of the year, and therefore it will, you know, anybody coming in will be displacing other people. It will not be additional.
Thanks, Provost. It would be helpful maybe if the officers or organisers would come back in on that specific point about the economic impact.
In due course. Now, Councillor Harvey.
Excuse me. Thank you, Provost. You mentioned about, sorry, thank you for your presentation there. You mentioned about alternate routes. Have you anything in mind, or is this something you've discussed with the organisers at all, or is this just a kind of more general comment? You know in the area better than I do.
So I think it would be very difficult to put an alternative route through Highland Perthshire, to be honest. There isn't, as I tried to sort of getting across, in Highland Perthshire there isn't an abundance of roads to deviate traffic down, and therefore any disruption is likely to take out major routes through Aberfeldy and Pitlochry, I suppose, and I haven't suggested alternative routes. Councillor Duff did make a very good suggestion to making a minor amendment in Pitlochry, which does not prevent, it doesn't require the closure of Station Road and the road that the supermarket is on, but it does continue to close the main road, and I don't think any of us are think that is the best solution. If there could potentially be a solution, I suppose, to go along the south side of Loch Tummel instead of the north side, for example. Maybe some of these, but generally speaking, I would be really hoping that an alternative route wouldn't involve Highland Perthshire, because we are so dependent on tourism. This is going to be one of our best, or should be one of our best weekends of the year, and therefore I would be hoping it could go through areas that aren't as reliant on tourism, and also have more alternative route options where, you know, a diversion is a much more minor matter rather than significant lengths.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your kind of proposal would be like to kind of try and avoid Highland Perthshire wards. Right. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll take Councillor Allen as the last question to the Provost before we open it up for more general questions to officers and the organisers. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Possibly already been covered, Xander. Thank you. I note that Councillor Duff has made a request for a detour around Pitlochry. It's not quite all around Pitlochry, I see that. Have you been in discussion with Councillor Duff? Is there agreement, is there disagreement? Can you help me understand why it appears that the team have been working with a councillor? They have put in that proposal, and is this something that you think is still just not answering the problem?
Thanks. Yeah, no, Councillor Duff consulted with both myself and Bailey Williamson in advance of submitting the alternative suggestion. It does solve, as I say, some of the problems in that it solves the access to Station Road and it solves the access to the supermarket. It doesn't solve the main road issue, which is where the coaches and the buses and most of the tourist traffic are coming through. So the main road through Pitlochry, which, you know, north-south, the Old A9, for those of you who know it, is going to be closed for any northbound access coming from the north or to the north. And basically what we know from previous experience of having major events, and we do host quite a lot of major events in Pitlochry, is that if there is a road closure in force, so on the day, for example, that the ETAP is held, because of all the road closure signs, the bus drivers just miss out Pitlochry because they think, right, there's major disruption there, we will just go past that onto the next stop, and they have a list of stops that they can make, and they do alternative ones if there is a problem in a certain area, so that they can miss, because they've got to keep their schedule going basically, so they don't have time for extra delay on that. They're making basically a toilet stop, a quick, lunch break stop, something like that. They don't have time for huge detours or anything like that. So from my point of view, although Councillor Duff's suggestion does solve some of the problems, and I said that, I also said at the time that I was still against the road closure because it caused the fundamental issue of the road, the main road north being closed, but also it still has the problems in Aberfeldy as well. So it cuts right the way through the middle of the town, Aberfeldy. The doctor's surgery, as I say, this is a working day. It's not a weekend day, for example. People are need to get to work and the doctors and stuff.
Thank you, and thank you, Provost. Thank you. And I've not seen. Councillor Welch, I understand you have a question for the Provost. I've not seen it. It's just come up now. Thank you. This will be the last question to the Provost.
Yeah, so essentially, I've been fortunate enough to witness the Grand Depart for the Tour de France in Copenhagen, and also some of the activities around the Giro d'Italia in Ireland. And I'm picking up from the Provost that there's some concern that essentially trade will be lost to Pitlochry potentially as a result of this, and people will have difficulties carrying out business. Well, I think maybe what would be a normal activity might be changed, and it will cause certainly some inconvenience to those that are maybe part of something that's maybe scheduled. Certainly my impression from the events that major cycling events that I've been involved with, is there's a significant interest on the day associated with spectating for it, and essentially a very positive accommodation before and after the event. And I think the key thing for me is the opportunity to showcase, extend the season, and on a world stage like this is too much of an opportunity for Perth and Kinross to potentially lose, especially focusing out with the city of Perth and encompassing some of these fantastic sort of rural areas that we really want to encourage enterprise and visits to.
Provost? Is there actually a question there, Jack?
Yes, essentially the question was, do we have a feel for effectively the balance of if you like affected economic benefit and if you like additional economic benefit that will come both on the day and ultimately as a result of the event in following years?
I'm sure that officers and the organisers can address that more generally, but I'll ask the Provost to answer for his concerns for the Highland Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think just to give a bit of context, so accommodation providers in Highland Perthshire will be running at close to 100% occupancy during August. They will be running at something in above 90%, 95% in July, and similarly in September. If this was an off-peak month, then I might have a slightly different view, but this is a bank holiday weekend, probably one of the busiest days of the year, and therefore, in my opinion, this will be displacement, and also it will be very difficult for anyone to go and view because actually the roads will be closed, and therefore it's not going to be easy for people to go and get to access points because the roads to the access points will be closed. So I think that from my point of view, this will be, in the case of Highland Ward, displacement. But as I say, I think there may well be benefits for other wards that are less reliant on tourism, have perhaps lower occupancies at that point in the year, although August is generally everyone's busiest month of the year. I think if it is an off-peak month, that would be a different case. But we already have very, very high occupancy. We have very high levels of trade coming through and very high tourist numbers coming through in general. There would be, on a normal day in August in Pitlochry, thousands of people, possibly tens of thousands of people coming through. There probably is tens of thousands because there's thousands of beds in Pitlochry and most of them will be full. So actually the potential for disruption, the times of these road closures will cause issues for people leaving accommodation for the night before and for arrivals for accommodation throughout Highland Perthshire on that day. And we know that from the ATAP, when that has been held, the benefit of the ATAP is, at least because it starts so early in the morning, people are coming to stay in Highland Perthshire because it starts at 5 in the morning and otherwise you have to leave your house in the middle of the night. Some people do that. That has become more increasingly common. My concern actually about the start time of this is that actually Perth and Kinross won't see significant increase in accommodation in general, because actually people will travel in from Edinburgh and Glasgow because of the start time. They will be able to do that. They'll be able to commute in quite easily for a mid-morning start time. It isn't an early start time, so there is no reason to be on the doorstep. You can book to stay for 2 weeks in Glasgow and just come up for the day to take part in the event. So I think from my point of view, the likelihood is much more that this will displace existing visitors and it won't benefit businesses who will be relying on this as part of their post-COVID recovery.
Thank you, Provost. We'll now move to questions for officers and the organisers, and if you can place those in the chat, I'd be grateful. Councillor Reid. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, convener. While I accept I am in a ward which is remote from the event and potential disruption, from the presentation I was very reassured by the traffic management plan. Can I just ask how residents, though, if they have an acute urgent situation occurring, how would they communicate with the traffic management teams and the various people that are put in to assist in this?
Can I ask one of the organisers to take that on? Thank you.
Sure. If Malcolm's online, he's best to pick it up, otherwise I will. Malcolm, are you able to pick that up?
Hello, can people hear me? I've been struggling to get connection. Hello?
We can hear you now.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for that particular question. We'll be dealing with that in from a communications point of view, with having a section of the website for the event set up specifically for FAQs around roads and road closures. We've also appointed a manager to oversee a helpline so people can register, and that manager, by the way, will also be the manager for our event control room, who is responsible for dispatch of motos, which have been mentioned already. So that manager will then be or taking inquiries, talking to, rather than emailing, talking to concerned individuals and organisations, and then where possible scheduling our motos to facilitate access into specific areas. I think there is one point I would like to make about that access. Facilitating access across the routes is one thing, and certainly facilitating access onto roads along in the direction of the cyclists is also feasible where required. What is absolutely counter to any health and safety and risks associated with running the event is having vehicles on the roads, even under escort, running in the opposite direction to the cyclists. So It's going to be through a website, a helpline, someone to talk to about those specific issues, getting them logged, finding a very specific and bespoke course of action to help around. But the help will be within the parameters I just described there. Additionally, on the day, we'll have stewards and marshals out around the course. We'll have a lot of people that will be there to assist getting across the roads if that is required, or to radio through to the control room to deal with emergent specific issues.
Thank you. I believe Barbara Renton wishes to come in just now. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. I would also want to add that, sort of our experience in running major events across Perth and Kinross means that we've already established the strong working relationships with our emergency service colleagues. They will be part of the strategic advisory group that supports this event, which will be chaired by Robert Lyle. And there will be a joint operational control centre for this as well, so that all of the main bodies, including, as I say, the Fire and Rescue Service, will be fully involved, fully coordinating any issues.
Thank you. And I'll take Councillor Forbes just now, because I think he wants to follow up on this specific question. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener. I think Barbara's kind of answered it. I was going to elaborate on what Councillor Reid had said. And if someone literally was having a heart attack or at death's door on the route, they would be able to get some medical care, I would hope. And can we just get reassurance of that?
Can we be reassured on that?
Should I take that one? Absolutely right. We will have an emergency helpline. There will be people on that will go through to the control room. And we will be coordinating with healthcare support, NHS, ambulances. We'll also have our own ambulances out on the route. So across that range of support, we would expect to be able to get any emergent matters dealt with promptly, and as we've heard, there will be a safety advisory group and a coordinated operation across all services, as well as the event on the day.
Thank you. I'll now go to Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I've got a number of questions. I'll come back in, and there's a number, so they might be ticked off. So I'm just going to pick one at random here. A note from the presentation that Bridgend is going to be closed for 8 hours. I also note that unlike Councillor Reid, I didn't see a traffic management plan. I didn't see proposed diversions, but I did ask for these at the ward meeting a number of weeks ago. So can I ask about what the proposed diversions are for my constituents and the wider East Perthshire, trying to get into Perth, trying to get into hospital or doctor's appointments or dental appointments? And can also ask whether the road safety team will be impacted in any way by preparation for the event.
I'll ask the organisers to come in, but then I think Brian Cargill may wish to come in on this one. Thank you.
Malcolm, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. With respect to the access to healthcare, let me take that to start with. So we would expect that through communications exercises that will be planned and executed, where there is planned care, we would look to help and those care appointments are flagged up to us. We will, to the maximum extent possible, be able to factor those into our escorting process. Now, there is a hierarchy, of course, of dealing with health appointments. There are those that are scheduled and perhaps non-urgent, and so working with the healthcare providers, we looked to reschedule wherever we could. Where rescheduling was not possible, then we would, but that people were able to find their or make their way to the facilities, we would look to escort them into there and facilitate those appointments wherever possible. In terms of specific mitigations around each sector on the route, they will be developed when we are in detailed preparation of traffic management plans. What we've already demonstrated, I believe, is the fact that we do listen. We've been listening to Councillor Duff, as we've heard, and developed version 1 mitigations around Aberfeldy to get people into and out of the surgery there. In terms of that, for example, we're looking to put some marshals and a couple of motos there to make sure we can get vehicles into the surgery and then out of the surgery in the direction of the riding. And around Pitlochry, where we listened again to suggestions and are taking the route up Larch Wood rather than the H924, which again, so I think we've when we get into those detailed conversations about local mitigations, we do listen and we are taking action, and they will get fed into the traffic management plan. What I can't comment on is a specific point that was raised there, and if that was dropped during the process of developing the route and having the consultations, then apologies for that. But equally, I'd like to say that we do listen. We're already demonstrating that we're listening and making adjustments and recalibrating what we're doing to address specific needs, and there is a process to pick up on those specific needs. I hope that addresses the questions that were raised there.
Thank you. I think Mark Butterworth wants to come into this.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Just in terms of the question around traffic management, I think it's just too early to say, to be perfectly honest, in terms of diversions and rerouting and things. But we will, when we develop those plans, we'll still engage with members in terms of what they are. So that liaison would continue. In terms of involvement of the road safety team, the road safety team won't be involved, but the traffic and network team will be, in terms of in the form of the network supervisor, will sit on the local organisation committee as a advisor more than anything, to be perfectly honest, because the traffic management will actually be done by a private company and will be organised effectively through the organisers. Thanks for being here.
And I think Barbara Renton wishes to come in too.
Thank you, Convener. I mean, I can recognise, sort of through the body language of elected members in chambers, that, sort of that you would look for more information than we currently have. But what the team have been doing is working very, very closely with the World Championship team. There is a bit of a chicken and egg situation about not trying to spend too much effort, time and whatever to get to that. But I absolutely understand that an understanding of the diversions and what that means and what that looks like for Perth, for Bridgend, for your own wards is important. And that's why I think that what I was hearing certainly from the organisers is that commitment to an ongoing dialogue and an ongoing discussion with you as elected members and with the communities and with the businesses in that area, in your areas.
Thank you. Councillor Forbes, we come to your own question now.
Thanks, Convener. I wonder if it would be possible to get the route map that we saw in the presentation back up on the screen, because there was something in there that I wanted to ask a question about.
Can the organisers put the route map slide up, please?
So just as an example, the number 3 in blue is a very long closure relative to the number 4 in green, and there are other things around the map that are similar anomalies. And I wondered why that was.
Malcolm, again, if you'd like to take that.
Hello, can I cut in and take that one? The reason for the duration there is the commitment on behalf of Galazzo to organise 2 sportif events, one of which is over the long route that you see here, and then there is also a medio route. And in order that the sportif riders do not interfere with people racing for world titles, we've had to delay the start of the medio sportif until 2 o'clock or thereabouts. Now, and that's what affects the duration of the time on that sector 3. What I would also like to say there, though, is that one of the mitigations that Phil talked to a little earlier about making use of the gaps in between the waves of events leaving Perth, and that those gaps around the routes, they are sufficiently long in order that we can affect reasonable traffic movement during those periods. So it's not, whilst the proposal, the road closure timings that you see here are from when soft closures go in until the hard closures are finished. Within that, other than in the race element, we do have some tools available to us to facilitate traffic movement, including the gaps in between the sportif events.
Can I have a quick follow-up?
Yep, follow-up, please.
On the same topic, if that's okay. So what would happen if there was stragglers at the back that were not going to be through before the road was closed? Would they be taken off the race? Or would the road closure be extended?
Ordinarily, under those circumstances, our sweep vehicle will give riders the opportunity to either climb into the bus that's following, or they'll have their rider numbers removed, and they'll be informed that they're on open roads. That's the way that these things work.
Thank you. We now move to Councillor Harvey.
Thank you very much, convener, and thank you to the organisation team for this. I've been to a number of Tour de France stages, and this does look very similar to the organisation that would be related to that, and I know how good an advertisement that is for the small French villages that go for that. My question is related a little bit to the Provost's concern about the route passing through Pitlochry, and just generally, have you had any other thoughts about the route generally, or is
sorry a moment, can we please silence that telephone when he's not speaking? It is rather disruptive. Thank you.
God, I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, have you looked into any alternative routes? I kind of know this area from cycling myself, so I doubt there is that many alternate routes, but what kind of thought has been put into the concerns of the Provost, and additionally his issues with the start time as well? Thanks very much.
I'll take the route one, and then Malcolm, you can come in on the start time. So the regulations for a Gran Fondo are delivered to us by the UCI. So there needs to be a sort of a minimum distance available. So when the original scoping was done, one of the things we obviously wanted to do was highlight Perth as an area, Perth and Kinross an area, and ensure economic viability and direction into the event. So you also need a place of transit. So that very much drove us towards Perth as the start, and the ability to get international visitors in and out of an area where they're more likely to have hotels and be able to get into. The other part of this is the kind of distance you need. The minimum distances kind of push you down certain roads. Obviously, we are doing our very best to avoid I think is it the M9 that goes up the middle? So where you need to go either over or under the M9 as much as you can. You can't go on it. Yeah. A9, sorry. So you can't go on it, which means that you are looking for transitions under or over it to be able to create the loop. And then an amount of it is just is also the genuine idea to try and deliver an absolutely spectacular route that will, when this is, I think Jenny mentioned it, this is a World Championships route. This stays a World Championships route after this. People will come to ride and test the route beforehand. So you will have visitors from France, Italy, and some of the European countries wanting to try and win these races and come and ride these routes beforehand, because they want to scope the routes and they want to try and do their best. And you will have people coming and riding them afterwards. And we want to deliver what we believe is an absolutely fantastic experience in Perth and Kinross. So yes, we have, but however said that, we continue to look at ways of reducing the impact where we can. So if we find some, or someone suggested, we will absolutely take on board those comments. In terms of the start time question, I'll pass over to Malcolm. Malcolm, if you unmute your phone.
Thanks, Phil. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Hello. You can. Very good. Thanks. Yes. In terms of start time, we modelled various start times ranging from 6 o'clock in the morning, which to try and mirror the scenario that the Provost indicated is run by the ETAP event in the area. We also modelled start times out to starting at midday. I mean, there is, because of the scale of the event and the fact we're running 18 individual races for men and women across all of the age groups out on the course, there is no way, there is no ideal solution that works for everyone. And then we've also got the matter of having consulted with the UCI about there being the participant experience, which they're particularly concerned about as well, which is best suited by the start times that we're putting in the model, which are commencing at. Hello, can people hear me still?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. So with respect to the start time, the optimal start time of the day is the one that we're proposing around about 10 o'clock. What I'd also like to just maybe peel back and add from the UCI regulations who are guiding us in terms of the technical elements of this event is that because we will have some substantial groups or fast moving groups of athletes out on the road, we also have to take into account the health and safety angle, and the route that has been proposed, it's in an area of natural beauty, but it also offers us a minimum quality of road as well, which both in terms of surface quality but also width of the road to get this number of athletes through, and in the event of accidents, for us to be able to get emergency services into the athletes, and then also in the event of emergent medical issues that occur in the communities on the route, we also need to be able to make sure that the roads are wide enough to get medical services into those locations as well. So there are what it lends itself to is the route that's been put forward, having considered a number of options in its development. Now, if there are things that we've missed, we will absolutely that people can highlight to us in by way of alternative roads, then absolutely we would consider them. Factoring in, of course, the points that Phil mentioned around the design and the health and safety elements that I've just raised here.
Thank you. Bailey McLaren.
Thank you, convener. I do have quite a number of questions. One of the proposed routes is through my ward, Strathty, as you're aware of. and I do have quite a few concerns regarding the route closure times. Route 16 closure time, what's that saying? 10:45 to 6:15. So I would welcome a more detailed conversation regarding the route through the ward. So that is probably a request more than a question. But going on to that, I'm highlighting that the Cross Tay Road Link roadwork section is soon to be going down to a 2-lane section while they construct a carriageway. That is to be in place for 6 months. Now that will, without any major event happening, cause traffic congestion from Inverarmond to Broxden roundabout without road closures. As we're all aware, the A9 is a route that the road safety concerns are very high due to the non-dualling of it. So if we have a serious road accident on the A9, other routes, road links surrounding the A9 are usually used for traffic if the road is closed. What is going to happen if that may occur? Because there is a strong potential that could occur on such a busy weekend of tourism traffic out with a large event coming to our area.
Can I take that question, please? Yes, thank you very much indeed for that. And to address the very first point you made, consultation, absolutely. I'll make myself available to get into detailed discussions with you around this and the local impacts. Take that as an absolute given, and I'd be happy to commence that conversation as soon as you'd like, which I'm sure will be fairly shortly after this meeting. With respect to the roadworks that you have highlighted, yeah, we are in. We have a subgroup, if you like, involving both the Transport Scotland, involving the main trunk road operators, looking at this amongst one or two other very, very specific major resilience issues at the moment. Now, we don't have I can't give you an answer to that as we're sat here. This group was convened within the last couple of weeks, and we are looking carefully at what options are available to us. So thank you very much indeed for raising that. We are aware of that issue and have a team of very capable people, actually also including the proposed traffic management contractors, looking at that to see what can be done.
Bailey McLaren, I'll come back to you for your further questions in due course, if I may. And I think Mark Butterworth wants to come in just now.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Just to add to Malcolm's answer there, as Barbara said earlier, there will be a safety advisory group, and that will involve the police, the fire service, the council and all partners. So if there are any issues around safety, they just wouldn't let the race go ahead. So that will certainly be an area that they need to look at.
Thank you. I'm just highlighting the concern of our safety concerns for residents. So thank
you. Bailey, your turn.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the presentation, and it's something very exciting for the region, obviously. One of the people who spoke earlier from the promoter strongly implied that non-urgent medical appointments would be rescheduled. Did I hear that right, that non-urgent medical appointments won't happen? This is obviously an already scarce medical resource, whether we're talking about urgent or not. And then the same question for vets, if I can, both travelling vets and veterinary practices. Thank you.
Can I take that one?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. With respect to the planning of mitigations. That there's a hierarchy that we look to work with the communities on. At the very first element of that hierarchy of mitigation involves planning and whether or not we can reschedule, we can replan. Now, of course, if that is not possible, and that does deal with frequently, we find it deals with a large number of concerns, people or residents that they are not necessarily wholly satisfied with that, but it does deal with a number of the issues. Where that is not possible, then that's where we get into local detailed planning with specific cases, and we look to affect and make the appointments happen to the absolute best of our ability, using the resources available and entering into dialogue with the medical practices. And the same would apply for veterinary practices as well. Yeah, we do have those in Cambridgeshire. We have a number of horse stables, and we work closely with them to make sure that in the event of the access or egress is required, we can make it happen very promptly.
Thank you. Do you want to follow up, Bailey?
Yes, sorry, Convener. I wonder if I could get a specific answer. So I think my concern is that we're wasting doctors' time if they're not able to see the non-urgent cases, and the same for veterinarians. So could we have a specific answer as to whether non-urgent medical procedures or appointments, sorry, I should say, will be able to carry on at the doctors and veterinary surgeries along the route? Thank you.
If the doctors and the patients need to see one another, and for those movements to be facilitated, then we do our best to make that happen. It's not, but that will be done through consultation and dialogue. That there isn't a straightforward yes answer to your question there, because we want to enter into some conversation to see what options might be available to us.
Okay, I suppose it'll be interesting to know on who's judging need and on what basis need is judged, but I've probably said enough. Thanks.
Thank you. We now move to Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Convener. And
sorry, Richard, if I can stop you briefly. Mark Butterworth wants to come in. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. And just in terms of non-urgent medical appointments, I think, you know, we can't, the Provost talked about impact before, and undoubtedly there will be an impact, a negative impact on residents and businesses on the day. I think the key to this is around communication. You know, nobody wants to waste doctors' times, but also people need to be aware of the local area and plan their day or their route of the day of the event. So if it is difficult to move around an area, it may be better for people not to go around about their daily business like that they normally would on that day, and maybe book appointments for different days. But I don't think it's a decision for the council or the organisers about who can go to an appointment or not. It will be about consultation with doctors, vets, etc., to make best use of their time on the day.
Thank you. And now Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you to the organisers for the presentation. Just in relation to the traffic management plans that are going to be developed, and especially in relation to Perth City, where the show is going to be happening in tandem, potentially creating quite a lot of traffic in the city and in the area. And what work has been done to try and encourage people to travel more sustainably to parts of the event and the Perth show for Perth City? So using buses or trains, and is that part of the planning as we go ahead?
Thank you. I'll ask for the organisers with regard to sustainability with regard to the event, and then perhaps Mark Butterworth would want to come in on a more wider basis. Thank you.
I'm happy to start from a sustainability perspective. When we look at our broader policy ambitions for this event, sustainability is one of those things that we are ensuring that is integrated within our planning. So we certainly will be encouraging anyone who is engaging with our event to find alternative ways of transport to vehicles. So I know that a lot of today's discussion has certainly been around access and parking and vehicles, and we know that we can't change that. But certainly with our with people that are attending this event on our behalf, we'll be working with our colleagues within the council, with Galazzo and with the local areas to be looking at alternative methods of transport. And I think one of the great things here is that there are good links and ability to move around on bike and walk and take the train where possible. So that will certainly be at the forefront of our planning because it aligns back to our sustainability initiative. So so you can be assured that that will be part of our planning.
Thank you for that. And Mark, do you want to come in on a wider basis? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, just in terms of the Perth show, the organisers have been speaking to the Perth show, and as I mentioned earlier, there will be a local organisation committee. The initial discussions have been really positive. I think the Perth show are happy to be involved and recognise the benefits of the two events that can complement each other. So the fact that we're starting to talk now will minimise any disruption and make sure that they, as I said, complement each other as opposed to compete.
And Mark, sorry, can I come in again, convener? Just in relation to bus companies and people potentially travelling in from Kinross or Auchterarder or from Dundee to watch the event, will there be discussions with bus companies in that to try and ensure that their services run as smoothly as possible and that people are encouraged to use buses rather than bring their cars into the city?
Can I take that? Thank you for the question there. Absolutely, there is under development and certainly will be enhanced within the general traffic management planning a communication to encourage participants in particular to be using buses and trains to get around. We know that typically 2/3 of the participants in the World Championships racing come in from overseas, and they work through our travel partner who uses buses to ferry them into situ, into location where they'll be staying. So the majority of these participants will be staying in Perthshire and Kinross. So that is just built into the way of doing things, and complements Trudy's comments about making this as sustainable as we possibly can. And then certainly we've got that element of people, no doubt, invariably from here, travelling from in and around the UK to come here, that we still do need to provide some measure of parking for.
Thank you. And I believe Barbara Renton wishes to come in now, followed by Mark Butterworth.
Thank you, convener. I mean, as Trudy said right at the very start, you know, the managing body for this is Visit Scotland, and we've got a really strong track record of working with Visit Scotland in terms of transport to and from Gleneagles, for example, for both the Solheim Cup and the Ryder Cup. And other events that we've held in Perth, we work very closely, and we are committed to working with the organisers and with our transport companies to make sure that people can get here as easily and as sustainably as possible, to make the very best use of that, but equally to make sure that people can access the event if it goes ahead here.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I've got nothing further to add. Thanks, convener.
Okay. Thank you. We now move to Councillor Anderson.
Thanks for the presentation. As a councillor for Strathmore Ward, we're greatly affected on the A93 A94 and the closure of Bridgend. I couldn't quite, my glasses are getting a bit faint, but I couldn't quite see the times that Bridgend is shut, but what period is it shut from? People going to work in the morning, come back at night. As a former competitor per show on the Friday, with ponies coming in the A93, the one thing you want to do at the end of your staff when you're showing is to get back home quick. And you've got Bridgend closed. You can't get back the A93 through Bridgend. What is the alternative routes for people in Strathmore to come into Perth? Because it could be quite a extensive alteration route to get a two-lane rather. You wouldn't come through Balthaic from Scone Airport or whatever. You wouldn't come along these single track roads to get into Perth.
Barbara Renton wants to take this one first.
Sorry.
Thank you, convener. All right, Councillor Stewart. Okay, it's just, sort of as the organisers and Mark have already alluded to, sort of we're working really, really closely with Perth Show. The commitment there is to make sure that the animals and the businesses and the stall holders and whatever, and the people who want to visit Perth Show get there as easily and as well as possible. As the organisers have already said as well, there will be staged, closures, so there'll be times when traffic will be able to move through as well. And that's the point of engaging with Perth Show, and Perth Show being absolutely delighted to be part of that engagement process to make sure that we can work this through as easily as we can for what will be a major world-class event.
Thank you. And now we come to Bailey Williamson. Sorry, go on, Councillor Anderson.
I spoke to Perth Show last week and they've had very minimal discussions with the organisers, whatever, about this event. Otherwise, I say on a Friday, the A94 is usually crowded with people, lorries coming down, getting into Perth to avoid the delays to Broxden. That is going to be a problem both ways with Bridgend being closed. So traffic management will have to be fairly strict on that. It was me, but I think Provost spoke about displacement. These people coming to see the event are only going to come for maybe a couple of days, 3 days, and then move on to other locations of the event. People coming to Perth, it's our busiest time of the season. And people would have booked for a week or a fortnight and to come up here at that time.
Do you have a specific question? You're making comments at the moment.
I'm just saying the economic benefit will not be that great for it. It'll just pass us by.
That's a comment, not a question.
That's my comment, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Bailey Williamson.
Thank you, convener. My question is around about the contracts. I would imagine that the company is hoping to put out contracts locally for supporting the event, and I'm just wondering if they will be put out of a size that local companies who probably don't have the same capacity as some of the big boys out with Perth and Kinross can, so that they can bid into the tendering process.
Malcolm, I think it's best you take that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great question, and thank you very much for that. There are clearly to produce an event like this, there is a lot of help that we need from the community, business community, and there are going to be contracts that are going to be let locally. In fact, there's already one contract that we've, well, two contracts that we've let to small events businesses to start helping us with the production of this. One in Pitlochry, and then one down just south of Perth in Glenfarg, and actually there are three actually. So we're already on that particular process. There are clearly certain larger contracts like the contractors for closing roads, and they are reaching out to lots of operators who work and live in the area, who will be on their teams. So yeah, plus there's going to be catering and other support services that will be requiring to make this happen. And yes, these will be there will be opportunities for people to bid to help us with providing that.
Thank you. We now move to Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. Given the map and the presentations today, which have all been very helpful to me, it's largely a rural race. How are we engaging with our farming community about access to livestock over what may be a 5 to 7 hour road closure throughout the area?
Thank you. I'll go to the organisers first.
So let me take that one. We're pulling together a communications plan at the moment, which will involve, amongst other things, a letter drop to make sure that all businesses and communities on the route that are affected will be aware of the event and will then have access to our helpline. And so particular solutions specifically for farmers and needing to get access to fields, back into warehouses or to livestock, those needs will be taken into account and dealt with on a very specific individual basis by our control room manager, who's manning that line for us, and he'll be responsible for the dispatch of motos. And the hierarchy of mitigations, will always have to come into play in terms of what can be rescheduled. Appreciate with livestock that's not the case, and so therefore what do we need to do to help facilitate movements either of livestock or of farmers to that livestock. So that's the process that we will be using. There will be a published helpline letter drop to make sure people know where to find that helpline, and then personal one-to-one solutions developed.
Thank you. And we now move to Councillor Carr.
Just a quick question. It's been a difficult winter in Perth and Kinross with regards to road quality and road maintenance. Having scoped the proposed routes, are there any issues around the quality of the roads there, with rider safety being paramount? And if there's a requirement for road maintenance, is that requirement going to affect current budgets or affect other areas of Perth and Kinross?
I think I'll invite Mark Butterworth to come in here, because Finance and Resources Committee have already made monies available for the question of road standards. Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The colleagues in Finance and Resources Committee agreed a funding package totaling £280,000 up to £280,000, which included £100,000 from the existing roads maintenance budget to improve the roads along the route. But as I said, that's capped at £100,000.
And would that, in the view of the officers, be sufficient for road maintenance, having the routes been looked at currently?
I don't think we've done an assessment just yet, but as I said, we've capped that at £100,000, so that's the maximum we will put into it. So if there's any further investment needed, that would come from other sources, not the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we now come to the last of the first questions, and Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Convener, and thank you very much for the presentation. One thing I would say is that it is a wonderful event that could happen for Perth and Kinross, getting national and worldwide publicity. All the questions that have been asked today are all relevant, but it seems awful negative. The one thing I really am concerned about is my ward, which will have 3 and 2, is people coming from the west. I'm a bit concerned that the road closures will mean that a lot of people will take a bypass over towards the Tivermore area, which is a junction onto the main road there, which is a dangerous junction, and I can imagine it being overloaded. So I would need to be satisfied that we've got that sorted. I also think that we should have had this maybe discussed for about a year in advance, because like I think we were saying earlier on about golf tournaments, these are made well in advance. But I certainly am looking forward to it, and I hope that a lot of the locals, instead of getting on the road, will line the route and cheer the people on. So I'd like to know about more about the road management, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Do you want to address the particular problem of Tibbermore or say more general on that? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. As I said earlier to Councillor Stewart's question, we are at early stage in terms of developing those traffic management plans, but although we have met and spoke to ward members prior to today, we will continue that engagement. So anything in terms of specific wards, we will continue to have ward meetings and engage with the members around traffic management issues, but also things like how local community groups and people can get involved and businesses. So this would just be effectively the beginning of that dialogue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no more first questions, so I'll move on to those who asked for second questions. I trust that some of them perhaps have been answered in the meantime, but Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. Actually, quite a lot of them remain, unfortunately. Provost McDade made reference to the Scottish, in fact, I think it came up in the presentation about the Scottish Government funding. My understanding is that that amounts to £30 million being delivered through a company set up by Visit Scotland. And I just wondered what share of the money, the £30 million, was coming to us, and how many of the other 10 local authorities, how much each of them was contributing or benefiting. And just a reminder that the officers was going to come back on the economic impact assessment question. Thanks.
Thank you. I think perhaps Trudy, can you come in on that one?
I can, Convener. So the Scottish Government funding will be distributed across the event. As you can appreciate, there is also additional sources of funding, including commercial revenues, that we were very pleased to announce Lidl as our first main partner for the event, which in these current economic climate is a significant commercial partnership to announce. The distribution of the funds, we can't separate down to each local authority. However, what I can assure you is that it is all going into the delivery of this event, which includes everything from the practical delivery, so the traffic and transport plans, how we're engaging with the local community, the staff that you're seeing sitting here today, but also the marketing and communications of this event. So this World Championships will be part of a broader marketing campaign. You saw the television commercial there today, encourage people to come and attend the event, buy tickets to those events that have tickets available, but also importantly, this is a significant free event. One of the great things about cycling is that it is largely a free event, which means it does require significant funding to enable it to proceed. It is not like other sports that can secure revenue through ticket sales. So we do have to rely on other sources of funding, which is why government funding is so critical, as is the funding from commercial partners, so that we can try and reduce any further impacts on government and local authorities to enable us to do what we need to do.
Sorry, so the total cost of the event will be the £30 million plus the contribution from each of the local authorities, plus the commercial contributions. So what is that total, and how much are each of the other local authorities contributing?
Sorry, government funding is from more than one source. So we have funding from Scottish Government, from Glasgow City Council, UK Sport, and a range of local authorities. So, you know, the total government funding is in excess of £46 million.
Thank you. We'll now move to Councillor Forbes, your second question.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. And as you said a minute ago, I think a lot of my questions have been answered through the course of the day, and I think they're largely about access. And as you know, I'm a photographer, and I'd be concerned about wedding venues along the route. Now, I won't ask that specific question because I suspect we'll get the same answer, which was relatively reassuring that communication that hasn't already happened will at least happen. But can I go back to what Provost McDade suggested, and it was to approve this but without the route? And I wonder if we could get a an idea from officers and from organisers what impact that would have if we went ahead with that particular proposal.
Thank you for that. If I may, I think the recommendations is that the route is proposed. The recommendations provide for the route to be, if you like, approved, subject to change between officers and the organisers in consultation with ward members. But I'll ask Mark to say a bit more on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, convener. In terms of the route itself, I think we have, well, the organisers have looked at alternatives, but it's absolutely not set in stone. The proposed route today is asking for committee's approval, but there is a recommendation if there is, you know, alternative routes which could work, from a whole host of reasons, safety and to meet the UCI regulations, they are still open to discussion. I'm not really sure whether the organisers have already commented or could comment again on the Provost's suggestion about taking the sort of the Highland Perthshire out. I think that's probably would be a request too far, because it would impact on the whole sort of integrity of the event. But any individual, I think Bailey McLaren may suggest some alternatives in her area, absolutely open to discussion and change if they can work.
Thank you. Do the organisers wish to come in with a comment?
Yes, please. Thanks, Mark. That's absolutely right. I think we have to. We want to make this work. We want to bring this incredible event to the region. We want to make it happen. We want to crown British and let's say more specifically world champions from region. So we, to that end, you know, any options that are available for us to reconsider, recalibrate the route, that we can also get through both on a safety and security perspective, and also from a technical regulations perspective with the UCI, we will look at absolutely.
Thank you. I now have Bailey McLaren. I've also got Bailey Williamson and Bailey with second questions. And after that, if I may, we'll draw questions to a close unless anyone comes in again. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, the majority of, yes, my questions here have been answered. The funding was one of the questions, but silly question maybe. Is the date set as the Friday the 4th? Thank you.
So I can take that one. So yes, the date is set. There is the Grand Fondo is two events, as I've presented to you previously. The 4th and a time trial on the 6th, 7th. Sorry. The 13 days of the championships are set and published. So we've had to do that as part of our ongoing. The dates were released before Christmas, so these dates are set, and I think it's important to stress that this is not a domestic event; it's an international event. So people have to book flights, create accommodation. People are coming from Jordan, Australia, Canada to do this, and there are, as Malcolm's already mentioned, at least 2/3 of the participants from this from the Fondo will be internationals, and they are more than likely with a sportive to bring international guests with them. Our single biggest question at the moment we are being asked via all our communication routes is for detail about the Grand Fondo. It is a real area of interest, especially from our Asian friends. Japan are really interested and have a lot of riders that want to try and qualify. So in terms of the dates, specifically the 13 days of the championships are set, and we have worked out the date based on what we feel is the best opportunity to have as many people ride the Grand Fondo, and it's paired with the Elite Men's Road Race on the first weekend, which we're also hoping will ensure an even bigger attendance.
Thank you. And we now go to Bailey Williamson.
Okay, thank you, convener. My question is around mini events ports or stations, and there are going to be still a number of businesses within Highland Perthshire that are going to be losing out. I'm looking at the route that takes you Larchwood Road, for example, that would take right past the golf club in Pitlochry, so the golf club's going to be potentially closed for the day. Is there the option to have a look at potentially sticking up mini event ports at these places so that to try and mitigate against some of the losses?
Malcolm, do you want to take that with regard feed stations, etc.?
For sure, yes, yeah. I think that there are absolutely opportunities for establishing our necessary infrastructures and event support mechanisms in local businesses, and therein there will be a fee associated with that. We recognise that we do need to, if we are to use, I mean, just to use that particular illustration of the golf club. What we do for the Tour of Cambridgeshire, and this is why we've been brought on board, that we're looking to mirror the production of that as much as possible up in the region, and that is in consultation with the because we affect a golf course here as well, and so in consultation with the golf course we discuss tee times, competitions, and ins and outs. And then what we also do is where we for in that particular case, and it would be the case in terms of timing on the route as well in Pitlochry, we then have a conversation about some fee associated with use of car park or entrance to be able to affect the establishment of a feed station in this case.
Thank you. And we now go to Bailey.
Thank you, convener. Sorry, I was struggling with my mute button there a second. My question is, the economic impact assessment certainly gives an eye-catching figure. Regular watchers of this YouTube channel know I have certain skepticisms about those at the best of times, but in this specific question, who prepared that economic impact assessment, and does it take into account the missed opportunity cost? And by that I mean the risk of reduced audience to the Perth show, lower general tourism numbers and lost working days. Thank you.
I can take that if that's okay. The economic impact assessment was prepared by the Cycling Worlds team using the Visit Scotland calculator, which is a calculator that uses the UK Sport national framework for those events. It does not. It's a positive economic impact calculation. There is no negative numbers involved in that. It is an addition. The numbers are used from evidence base, so they are numbers from previous economic studies from previous Gran Fondo World Championships, and they are directly taken into the modelling. So we are hoping that they are as accurate as they can be based on the evidence that's been used to do so. I think in terms of the negative economic impact, it's undeniable that some people will benefit more than others in this event, and I guess that goes for a number of things. What the organisers and ourselves will try and do is make the event overall positive and on a longevity basis, not just for the day of the event, but also there is an amount of displacement economy that happens. So people, for example, people might not be able to go to the shops on that day, but they will go the day after or the day before. People still need their shopping, if that makes sense.
Could I also, sorry, convener, could I also maybe add something to Phil's comment there?
Yes, briefly, please. Yeah.
Yes. And so in terms of the longevity point, we're already we have already looked at and floated the idea with Pitlochry of holding an additional shoulder season cycling festival there off road, so there won't be road implications, which we believe we could grow to several thousand people over time. So that's one point that we're already looking at. And in terms of the Perth show, it's me that opened up the conversation with them. We've had a couple of meetings now, one face-to-face in their offices, and we are looking to drive substantial footfall into the show on the Saturday, and then there was also which they are delighted about, and because that's relatively recently hit the screens that we're looking at, I think that will be an absolute net addition. And in terms of just that, a comment with respect to the show and the discussions about traffic in, they like to get the animals and exhibitors in by 7 o'clock on the Friday morning, and that's been fed into our traffic management planning or initial planning and the road closure teams. So I think that there are some very, very strong upsides there that perhaps were not already picked up in that longevity and economic upside analysis that Phil was talking about.
Thank you. And I think Mark Butterworth has a response for Councillor Stewart before we go to your final question, Councillor Stewart, and then the final question from Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I think it's been answered now by the organisers, but I think one of the key points is I don't think anyone can pretend there won't be a negative impact on the day to residents and some businesses. I think the thing is, though, the aspiration is around long-term positive economic benefits, people coming to Perth and Kinross that have never came before and coming back again and again, and also the potential millions of viewers on the TV who will see Perth and Kinross and then may visit also. So I think, absolutely there's no way of hiding the challenges on the day, which can only be mitigated as best as possible. But as I said, the aspiration and the aim is to have those long-term economic benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Deputy Provost, and thanks to Bailey for following up on that point, and Mr. Butterworth for coming in on it. And I would just note that the economic impact assessment is not independent and includes no negative impact, so it's quite a slanted assessment. However, turning to my question, I don't think it's properly been brought out, but there's been no community consultation in advance of officers bringing this proposal before us, and I think it was referenced earlier in terms of a chicken and an egg situation. However, perhaps had there been some of the community consultation, do officers think that some of the concerns that they're hearing from members through the questioning today might have been alleviated in advance?
Mark?
I think that is a fair comment. I think in terms of where we were and where we are, and I think the organisers probably need to come in here. I think the local operator, Galazzo, who Malcolm works for, were only brought on board very recently. So we haven't had that time to do that consultation. So we were able to speak to all members and do the ward meetings, but there just simply hasn't been time to do that. But absolutely fair comments. But I think the challenge now is to do that consultation and work with community councils, community groups and residents as businesses between now and the event. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just say, I mean, I think the problem is that, are you not asking us for permission for something where all of the possible negative impacts or issues needing resolved are not being brought before us, and some of those might not be soluble once you go out? Very few people in the community will know about this proposal. We have an idea about it. We may have spoken to some people about it, but there'll be loads of groups that haven't been spoken to about this proposal, won't there?
Yeah, absolutely. There will be, but to be fair, I don't think there's anything that we bring to yourselves in terms of events will have had all the I's dotted and T's crossed. It's certainly playing catch up here. I don't think there's any pretense around that. But at the same time, with any event, we would look to get members to agree in principle and then work up the detail and work through the issues. And again, I'm not by any means promising that all the issues will be addressed, because they absolutely won't be. As I said, there will be impacts on the day, but I would hope that the scale of the event and the opportunity will outweigh those negative impacts on the day.
Thank you. And we'll now go to Councillor Reid for the last question.
Thank you, Convener. I'd like to thank the presentation team for today's information. I personally am looking forward very much to this wonderful international event. However, I just wonder what is the mechanism should we refuse the application?
I think that's quite simple, Councillor Reid. If committee decides that we don't want it, it won't happen. Thank you.
Is there no appeal process? Sorry, Convener.
Not as far as I'm aware. You know, there is only a limited amount of time, but perhaps Mark Butterworth might want to add to the reply.
Thanks, Convener. No, I think you've answered fully. The time is not on our side. If it's not agreed today, I would probably say that there wouldn't be an event. I don't know if the organisers would like to comment as well, but as previously been commented, you know, people will be looking to book and plan to come here from the four corners of the earth, and they need to know that, you know, yourself when you're booking, you know, just a week in Benidorm, that you need time to plan it and etc. So I think if it's not supported today, it certainly wouldn't happen in Perth and Kinross or at all. Again, I don't know if the organisers like to add to that.
And if the organisers might want to comment on that, and also a question has just been posed in the chat in terms of bad weather, which can happen in the summer. What sort of bad weather plan would you have? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Malcolm, do you want to deal with the bad weather first, or and then I can come in and wrap?
Sorry, Trudy. Yes, yeah. Let me just deal with the bad weather planning for cycling is part and part of our process. We do have certain standards that are required to be met. Cycling is quite a hardy sport. I mean, people met in Paris-Roubaix and the early season classics where racing in Belgium, which are on cobbled, muddy tracks, and amateurs and professionals do this together. So it takes a lot to put off a bike race, but on the other hand, we do recognise it is possible. Strong winds, for example, and snow would certainly be factors we'd have to look at very, very seriously, and and we would have appropriate measures to address that. Thanks.
I would hope that in August we generally don't have a snow problem, apart from on one or two summits. But Trudy.
Thank you very much. In terms of that wet weather planning and contingency planning, that is something that we do look at from an overall event perspective, working with each of our respective local groups, but also an overarching perspective. In terms of the decision, we obviously we've been working in certainly challenging times with the creation, planning and delivery of this event. Nobody would wish to pick delivering an event in the current macroeconomic climate, and so I think we need to take into account that absolutely consultation would have happened earlier, and I think Mark's right, we take on board those comments, but at the same time we were challenged by the fact that we couldn't actually come out and talk to anyone, and there were, people were focused and local authorities were focused on making sure their communities were getting through the pandemic and now into a macro economic climate in terms of inflationary pressures and so on. So we're very cognizant and conscious that there is a lot going on around, whilst we're still trying to give the communities hope and joy by bringing major events into Scotland, and also working and engaging with your community in the Perth show, as you've heard here today. So for us, it's about making sure that we can get those international visitors into Scotland, into Perth and Kinross, and you know, we would love to have a decision today so that it enable us a path forward. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. That is the last question we've had. We've been going for 2¼ hours, and I would propose, before I move the report and we move to any possible amendments or comments, that we take a short recess for a comfort break and reconvene at 12:25. Thank you. Okay, can we take our seats and reconvene? Are we ready to go again, Audrey? Okay, I'm sure everyone has benefited from that short break. I certainly have. I didn't say in what way I've benefited. Okay, thank you. I'll now move the report. Hosting the Grand Fondo on the 4th of August 2023 provides Perth and Kinross Council with a unique opportunity to be part of a historic cycling event, part of the first ever World Championships, which will take place across Scotland later this year. This event will place Perth and Kinross on the world stage, and whilst there will of course be disruption on the day of the event, which the organisers must work hard to mitigate and minimise, I have no doubt that the global attraction of the event and its sheer scale will have significant economic and social benefits for the residents and businesses of Perth and Kinross for a long time after the necessary road closures and detours have gone. Our colleagues on the Finance and Resources Committee have already demonstrated their support for the event in the form of £280,000 of funding, and this report is now seeking this committee's support for the proposed route and ultimately to host the event here in Perth and Kinross. Therefore, I move the report and ask committee to approve the recommendations as outlined in section 2.1 of this report. And I would ask the Vice Convener to second the report. Thank you.
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'll just have to wake up my computer. First of all, we'll go to Bailey for comment.
I think it's probably only proper that we hear the amendment first. So if you're content, Convener, I'd be happy to cede to Councillor Stewart.
Okay, Councillor Stewart, to your amendment.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I'll post my amendment in the chat, if that's okay. I'm happy to read it out as well. The amendment is to defer approval of the proposed route for the Grand Fondo to a later meeting or special meeting of this committee or its executive subcommittee, so that officers can engage with the organisers and establish an alternative, less disruptive route/date within the 3rd to the 13th August window, and can proactively consult with affected residents, businesses and communities using the Council's established framework. I think during the questioning today, we've heard sufficient concerns raised, both specifically in relation to the Highland Ward from via the deputation from the Provost, and through the other questions that members have asked, that this proposal is not ready to go forward at this stage. Frankly, I would be proposing actually just refusing permission for the route altogether, but I think that there is a genuine desire here to actually bring an international event to Perth and Kinross. Certainly I would be happy, given alternative dates or route, to have people come and see some more of, have people cycle through some more of Strathmore Ward than they will do on this proposed route, where they'll be taken past the essentially just the construction site of the Cross Tay Link Road. So the grounds I think that we have to consider here are the rescheduling of non-urgent appointments. People find it difficult enough to get appointments with their medical services. I'm quite surprised to hear we did get this flagged up in the ward meetings, but I'm quite surprised that there's been doubling down on the issue of trying to persuade people to reschedule, trying to, going out with a communications plan to doctors, dentists, vets, consultant appointments potentially at PRI, and asking them to reschedule people. It's difficult enough, waiting lists are long enough, we don't need that disruption. I'm surprised that the economic impact assessment is not independent, and that it doesn't include any of the negative impacts on the day. So as you're going past, for example, the route out Crieff Road, nobody will be able to get in or out of Tesco. That'll have to shut for 6 hours, I would imagine, let alone the then 8-hour closure of Bridgend, which is one of the key pinch points. And we know it's a key pinch point because the council is committed to spending £150 million worth of public money in order to alleviate the pinch point that Bridgend exists. An 8-hour closure of Bridgend will significantly affect a lot of my constituents and residents, not just and not just mine in Strathmore Ward, but across Eastern Perthshire more widely, and across the further out parts into Angus. People, not necessarily people coming in that day for Perthshire, but certainly people going out again later on in the day. We've heard that there's been a lack of consultation. The council has an established communication and consultation framework. I suggested that this would have been an excellent opportunity for that to be deployed, to bring forward some of the problems and issues that we've had brought forward in the through questioning today, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. I think it's also worth noting that in terms of, I've missed the point in terms of economic benefit. I went on to a couple of the hotel websites last night for the 3rd of February. There was no availability in Premier Inn. For the 3rd and 4th of February, sorry, for the 3rd of August, there was no availability in Premier Inn. The nearest was in Dundee for the 3rd and 4th of August. You could get a room in a Travelodge in Perth, but you would be paying £480 for it, as opposed to the standard price of under £180. So I think that the point that the Provost made about economic displacement is well made. I think we should also consider that in terms of holding a cycling event up as an exemplar for future encouragement of people to participate in such events, then what we're actually talking about here is a road closure which will be for all users, including public transport and, ironically, other cyclists. On these grounds, that the proposal is just not ready to come for consideration, and that there are options for less disruptive routes or dates within that 3rd to the 13th of August window. I think that we should not agree the proposed route at this stage, but ask for it to come back, and that's the basis for my amendment, which I commend to the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Do we have a seconder for your amendment?
I would gladly second his amendment.
Thank you. I'll now take comment. And I think if we can but first, I think that amendment is competent, but I'd like to hear from officers and the organisers as to the impact of that amendment, because my understanding is that really we have to take a decision today to enable the detailed planning to proceed, and that deferral, frankly, does not allow for the event to take place. But I'd like to hear from officers and the organisers in that respect. Thank you. Trudy.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Put simply, a decision needs to be taken today to allow us to proceed. Any deferral would impact on the potential to deliver this event, and would place it at a greater risk to the local community and also to everyone involved. So we require a decision today to enable us to proceed to deliver an event on behalf of Perth and Kinross Council, behalf of Scottish Government and our partners, and on behalf of the UCI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mark, do you wish to add comment?
Just clarity, please, convener. I don't know. I think Phil mentioned the time trial. I think Phil initially said the 6th. I think it's actually the 7th, isn't it? Monday the 7th. And just in terms of the status of that, my understanding is Dundee Council has already approved that the event and therefore the date. So I don't know if there might have been a suggestion of swapping with another event, for example, but I don't think that would be possible. But that's the 7th, Monday the 7th.
Thank you very much. The first comment, Councillor Forbes.
I think it was Bailey.
Sorry, Bailey.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Thank you, convener, as well. I guess have sort of hastily rewritten some of this, having considered the amendment, and I don't think there's time for delay here, and I'd hope that the planned further consultation already takes into account Councillor Stewart's concerns, or at least some of them. They're very well put, though. This really is a tricky one, though, and on the one hand, we have a very one-sided economic impact assessment that only counts the upsides and not the downsides. I'm also coming away from this exchange with a slight lingering concern that golf tee times are being taken more seriously by the promoter than non-urgent medical appointments. However, the overwhelming picture here is of an event that will be positive for the area and the visiting competitors, and is one which I support. Yes, of course, it would be better done on a weekend day and less disruptive. And I'd have liked to have heard much more conclusive answer today about potential impact on our already scarce medical resource. However, I'm putting my trust in the promoter and the officers to ensure that those mitigations will work now that this issue has been highlighted and that doctor time won't be wasted. So as you can likely already tell, I've not been impressed with some of the answers today, and also that other organisations and interest groups have been speaking on behalf of our own officers. But I think taking a step back here, if this was given to a neighbouring local authority, I suspect those same officers would be fielding hundreds of questions today from myself and colleagues about why our area lost out. And so predominantly for that reason, and for the fact that we have to support the notion that roads are for cyclists too and not just motorised transport, I'm supportive of the motion, and hopefully the legacy of this event for our area will be long lasting, and I'm therefore content with supporting the motion. Thank you, convener.
Thank you, Bailey. Councillor Forbes.
Bailey has commented on pretty much exactly what I was going to say. I do have a huge amount of sympathy with Highland Perthshire and the other wards that will be directly affected by this, and Provost McDade made some really good points, and it would have been, I think, more helpful for us all to have been having this meeting some months ago. I think we probably would have all benefited from that, but we are where we are, and I think, as Bailey said a minute ago, we have to balance out this economic imbalance between where some people will lose and some people will gain, and we have to make a decision. Will the overall benefit be better for Perth and Kinross or worse? I'm of the view that the economic benefit over the grand scheme of this will be beneficial to Perth and Kinross, and I'll be happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, convener. I notice that none of the route goes through our ward, does it, guys? And we're the first people to comment on it. However, both my fellow ward councillors expressed roughly what I'm going to express. I'll just emphasise, if we do turn this down today or agree the amendment, it means it goes somewhere else, and just think what the press would say about that. But I'm happy to support the amendment. The motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Convener. I have listened very carefully to all the questions and the answers this morning, and I think it's a tricky balancing act, but I think when it comes down to the huge benefits that will accrue to the whole of Perth and Kinross, putting us on a world map, I think we have to go with the paper and the motion and accept it. I think we have some experience with major cycling events, so we're not going into this completely green. Our officers have experience in it, so I wish it all the best, but I think it'll be interesting to see just how well we can cope with it. It is unfortunate it clashes with the Friday of the show, but let's hope that we can do it and really put Perth and Kinross on the map. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Bailey McLaren.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I too have found this a tricky conversation and a tricky balancing act to find, and undoubtedly there will be negative economic impact, but I am confident that the organisers have picked up on our deep concerns of routes, timings, etc., and from this point on will consult with us and to deliver a tournament and a race that is undoubtedly world class, and yes, will bring Perth and Kinross very much to an international map. So I too do support the paper.
Thank you, Bailey McLaren. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. In any major event, there's always going to be negatives. I think what we're hoping to do here is to major in on the positives. I think there are many. I think it brings brilliant kudos to our area. And I think if it's televised, people will see our place in the best possible way. I'm going to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Convener. This will go through my ward, and it will go through one of the most picturesque, I feel, places in Perth and Kinross. I think it will be very, very positive for the area. We'd be looked upon as being a very progressive council as well by accepting this, because lots of other councils would really want it. I think there are problems. We've got to solve them. I think we should have had the meeting earlier, but I am all for the motion, and I think the benefit will be for the wider area of Perth and Kinross. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Welch.
Thank you, Convener. I echo the sentiments. Ultimately, we're all about trying to encourage sustainable transport. This is a great opportunity to attach local sort of aims and objectives around sustainable cycling and the wider health benefits. It is going to run through Strathmore. There will be some impact, but I'm very keen to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Welch. I see no further comments. We will therefore now move to the vote. Adam Taylor. My apologies. If you wish to sum up, yes, please do, Councillor Stewart. My apologies.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. There's possibly no point in summing up, as I think I can read the tide in the room. However, I would just note that as I said in my comments, people are associating this with a promotion of sustainable transport. The road closure is for everybody. Public transport, buses, coaches, horse riders, and the other cyclists. I think it's disappointing that we didn't have confirmation of Dundee's position earlier, because the quote that's in the report before us clearly says officers have previously advised that elected members in Dundee and Angus are supportive, but formal committee approval is yet to be received. And I think that that would be still an opportunity to have a discussion about the best date for the two events. The option is there, open to you all, to join Councillor Anderson and I in a common sense approach.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. And I apologise again. You know I'm keen on railways, but I was in no sense seeking to railroad the issue at all. But if I can just say, in summing up myself, cycling has a huge following around the world. Its huge following, I think, is much stronger in some other countries other than Scotland, although we'd like to encourage it here. And I think there are places around the world that would give their eyes teeth to be holding this event. And I hope very much that we can hold the event. There is a lot of detailed organisation to do, but I think that we can hold a fantastic event in Perth and Kinross, and really, through the coverage of that event in the global media, really put Perth and Kinross in the map. And I would urge people to support the motion. Thank you. Adam.
Okay, thanks, convener. So we'll now go to a roll call vote in line with the council's standing orders. We have a motion proposed by Councillor Parrott, seconded by Councillor Williamson, which is to agree the recommendations as detailed in the report. And we have an amendment proposed by Councillor Colin Stewart, seconded by Councillor Anderson, which is to defer approval of the proposed route for the Gran Fondo to a later meeting or special meeting of this committee or its executive subcommittee, so that officers can engage with the organisers and establish an alternative, less disruptive route/date within the 3rd to the 13th of August window, and can proactively consult with affected residents, businesses and communities using the council's established framework. When I call your name, if you can indicate whether you're voting for the motion or the amendment. Councillor Allen.
Motion.
Bailey.
Motion.
Councillor Carr.
Motion.
Councillor Reid.
Motion.
Councillor Forbes.
Motion.
Councillor Harvey.
Motion.
Councillor Anderson.
Amendment.
Bailey McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor Parrott. Councillor Robertson.
Motion.
Councillor Smith.
Motion.
Councillor Stewart.
Amendment.
Councillor Waters.
Motion.
Councillor Welsh.
Motion.
And Bailey Williamson.
Motion.
I have 13 votes for the motion, 2 for the amendment, therefore the motion will carry.
Thank you very much, councillors. That's been a long morning, for which I thank you for your attendance. I'd like to thank the organisers and officers for their very lengthy presentations on the matter, and I hope that we can go on from here into all of the detailed discussion and arrangements that there have to be to hold a fantastic world-class event. Thank you to all. Thank you.
Thank you.